Hello, everyone. I'm Patti Browne, and you are in the strategy room. Dr. Ben Carson's presidential campaign is slamming a report in the New York Times that claims the Republican candidate is struggling to grasp foreign policy. On Tuesday, the Times published a story in which two of the retired neurosurgeon's top advisors said he, quote, struggled to master the intricacies of the Middle East and national security. In a statement, Carson's camp pushed back, saying one of those advisors has incomplete knowledge of his national security briefings, among other things. Well, joining us now with their take are Democrat Joe Lestingi in D.C. and Republican Robert O'Brien in Los Angeles. Welcome to both of you.
Thanks for having us.
Joe, Dr. Carson speaks slowly and carefully. He clearly doesn't have the charisma of some of the other candidates, but does that necessarily mean he doesn't grasp foreign policy, or just that he doesn't articulate his views as easily as others?
Well, no, it doesn't mean he doesn't grasp it. That his speaking and the way he speaks is very deliberate. And I imagine that is also an indication of what kind of surgeon he was. I mean, I bet he was very deliberate in making his choices. I will say, though, that the product that comes out has got to have some work. He has made a lot of flubs when it comes to national policy, and he really, I don't know if it's that he's not grasping it or if he's overthinking issues, but he is missing some big things like China being involved in Syria, and in fact they all missed the trade deal that didn't involve China in that debate. I mean, this is something that he's got to fix, and I actually think this is an indication of what it's like to be a frontrunner. Welcome to frontrunner status. The vetting comes now. Everything he says is going to be under scrutiny, including the pyramids to his childhood. Everything's going to get questioned.
Yeah, Robert, Armstrong Williams, whom the Times described as Carson's top advisor, said that Carson has struggled to adapt his speaking style. Is that what this is about, do you think?
You know, I'm not sure it's a speaking style, and there's no question that Dr. Carson's a smart man. He's very intelligent. He's been a top physician in this country for many years. So I have no doubt that he can grasp foreign policy, but the world has intruded. National security and foreign policy has intruded in a big way in this campaign. It was always going to be a big issue, and now with the Paris attacks, it's a huge issue. And Dr. Carson has to be prepared to show the American people that he can be commander-in-chief on day one of his presidency. He's had some trouble. Hugh Hewitt interviewed him earlier in the cycle. He did not know that the Baltic states, Latvia, Lithuania, and Estonia, were members of NATO at the time. So he does have some work to do, and we'll see if he can get up to speed quickly enough to satisfy the concerns of Republican and general election voters on that issue.
Yeah, Joe, is a crash course enough? We hear the argument that, if someone is intelligent enough and reasonable enough and they surround themselves with good advisors, that they can be briefed on these issues even if they haven't been following them all along, and just be brought up to speed and make reasonable decisions if they have that innate wisdom, etc. Are you buying that?
Like the power of delegation, right? I don't know. I don't think so. Unfortunately, listen, Dr. Carson is an extremely smart human being, and if I ever need brain surgery, I will go to him. But when it comes to foreign policy, I'm not going to put him in charge of that, just like I'm not going to put my lawyer in charge of fixing my car. And my lawyer is a very smart man. My point is that getting a crash course in Middle East policy is not something that just comes to you. You have to live it. You have to smell it. You have to breathe it. You have to be there. You have to understand the intricacies of all the communities and the cultures and the ties and the history. It is not something you learn in college history, world history 101. It is something that your diplomats have to experience. And even as these presidential candidates, may lack in that, most of them at least have been to the region, seen the conflicts, got the briefings. He's missing a lot. This, I think, is the first crack, and it's going to explode eventually.
All right, Robert, to Joe's point, we've been hearing that this is the race for the outsiders. Everyone wants somebody who's not a politician. But are we now seeing one of the disadvantages of being a political outsider? He's not a slick politician. He is a brilliant neurosurgeon, but public speaking, not his forte, and perhaps foreign policy, not his forte. Is that a liability? Are we starting to see cracks, as Joe said?
Look, it's a concern. I hate to agree with Joe on too many things, but these are tough issues, and you have to be thinking about these issues, whether it's Eastern Europe or the Middle East or Southeast Asia. They're complicated issues, and where he's going to be at a disadvantage is with Senator Cruz, who's on the Senate Armed Services Committee, Senator Rubio, who's on the Senate Foreign Relations Committee. They've been taking the Codels around the world to our bases, to these hot spots, meeting with our diplomats, meeting with ambassadors, meeting with foreign leaders. They're briefed every day. They're very fluent, and I think we're going to see in the debate on December 15th in Las Vegas Hugh Hewitt's doing that debate. He's going to ask foreign policy questions. Those questions are going to be granular. They're going to get down into weapon systems, the nuclear triad, Shias and Sunnis. It's going to be there's a lot of prepping to do between now and December 15th, and I think that Dr. Carson may be at a disadvantage, especially with the senators and someone like Chris Christie, who was a federal prosecutor and prosecuted terrorism cases. So I think Joe's right. It's going to be a heavy lift for him, and he is going to be scrutinized given his standing in the polls right now.
The insiders might start to creep up. All right.
Yeah.
We're going to have to leave it there. Joe and Robert, thank you so much.
Thanks
and for more on this developing story, go to foxnews.com. I'm Patti Browne. Thanks for watching.